Before kings wore crowns, before empires rose and fell, there was Orunmila, the sage, the prophet, the keeper of destiny itself. For centuries, his words were carried in verses, whispered in temples, guarded by priests. They spoke of signs, of a world out of balance, and of the day Orunmila would return. The prophecies, they are not stories. They are happening now. The Yoruba Prophecies warned of chaos, betrayal, and nations forgetting the old ways. But they also promised hope. The wisdom of Orunmila would rise again to guide the lost. Will humanity listen this time? Will they follow the path of wisdom, or will the world fall to ruin? I never left. You are the ones who must return. The return of Orunmila is not a myth. It is a prophecy unfolding before your eyes. Destiny waits for no one.
They say there was once a time when Orunmila walked among humans. His voice was the whisper of wisdom, his presence the embodiment of divine order. He was not only an Orisha but the custodian of Ifá, the sacred system of divination that held the codes of destiny itself. Orunmila, the witness of creation, knew the blueprint of the universe because he stood beside Olodumare when the foundations of existence were laid. It is said that he walked with men and women, teaching them how to navigate life, how to balance justice with compassion, and how to honor the delicate threads that connect the living with the divine. But as the stories go, there came a time when Orunmila disappeared, withdrawing into the unseen realms, leaving behind a promise that he would one day return. The Yoruba tradition carries this prophecy of return not as a tale of nostalgia, but as a living reminder. For Orunmila's disappearance was never abandonment. It was a test. Humanity was left with the verses of Ifá, a vast library of 256 odus that contain guidance for every possible condition of life. The prophecy says that when the world has strayed too far from truth, when chaos replaces balance, and when forgetfulness overshadows memory, the wisdom of Orunmila will return with force, restoring harmony where disorder has taken root. Who is Orunmila in this cosmic drama? He is the Orisha of destiny, the seer who knows every soul's Ori, the inner head, the divine spark that carries personal purpose. He is the one called upon when the path becomes clouded, when nations are in turmoil, when individuals stand at crossroads. Without Orunmila, the world risks blindness, stumbling through cycles of destruction and confusion. With him, the world remembers its map, its rhythm, its higher order. The mystery of his disappearance still lingers. Was it literal, a retreat from the physical world? Or was it symbolic, a withdrawal of wisdom from hearts that ceased to listen? And what does it mean that he promised to return? Some believe it will be a physical return, others that his presence is already manifesting through the revival of Ifá across the world. So we are left with a question that pierces through history into our present moment. Are the prophecies of Orunmila unfolding today? In the rise of cultural revival, in the crisis that echo ancient warnings, in the spiritual hunger of a generation searching for direction, could it be that the whisper of Orunmila is already here, calling us back to remembrance? To understand the return of Orunmila, we must first understand who he is in the vast and intricate cosmology of the Yoruba. Orunmila is not just another deity among the pantheon of Orisha. He is the custodian of wisdom, the guardian of destiny, and the one who holds the keys to divine order. He is known as the Orisha of wisdom, foresight, and knowledge, yet his role extends far beyond intellect. Orunmila is the embodiment of clarity itself, the one who helps human beings remember the destinies they chose before descending into the world. Without him, life becomes a maze without a map. With him, even the darkest path can be illuminated. Orunmila's relationship with Olodumare, the supreme god, sets him apart. Yoruba tradition teaches that Olodumare entrusted Orunmila with a unique responsibility to bear witness to the act of creation itself. When the universe was being formed, Orunmila was present. He saw how the elements were arranged, how time unfolded, how the destinies of humanity were woven into existence. Because he witnessed creation, Orunmila carries knowledge of the blueprint of the universe. He knows the origins of both order and chaos, and he understands the remedies for imbalance. This is why he is regarded as the supreme diviner, the one who can reveal hidden causes and prescribe sacred solutions. The wisdom of Orunmila is preserved through Ifá, the divinatory system that forms the intellectual and spiritual backbone of Yoruba tradition. Ifá is not simply fortune-telling. It is a vast spiritual library encoded in 256 odus, or sacred chapters, each containing hundreds of verses, stories, and proverbs. These odu are like cosmic algorithms, holding knowledge about every possible human condition, from illness to prosperity, from justice to betrayal. When a babalawo or priest of Ifá casts the sacred palm nuts or cowries, the resulting patterns point to one of these odus. Within that odu lies the story or proverb that mirrors the client's situation, offering both diagnosis and prescription. This corpus is considered one of the most sophisticated bodies of oral knowledge in the world. Its verses are not written in ink but carried in memory, transmitted from teacher to apprentice over generations. Within them are not only spiritual laws but medical wisdom, environmental insights, moral instruction, and cosmic philosophy. Ifá does not separate the sacred from the practical. It teaches that all of life, from planting crops to governing nations, falls under divine law. Orunmila is the keeper of this wisdom, ensuring that it is always available to those who seek it with sincerity. What makes Orunmila's role even more profound is his function as the revealer of destiny. In Yoruba belief, before a soul is born, it kneels before Olodumare and chooses an Ori, a personal destiny, a spiritual path it must fulfill on earth. But once incarnated, the soul forgets. This is where Orunmila comes in. Through Ifá, he reminds individuals of the destiny they once chose, helping them realign their lives with their true path. He is therefore not only a diviner but also a guide, ensuring that humanity does not wander aimlessly through existence. To call Orunmila the Orisha of wisdom is to say only part of the truth. He is the very architecture of remembrance, the living bridge between Olodumare's divine order and humanity's fragile choices. His knowledge is not abstract but deeply practical, addressing the struggles of life with precision and compassion. His presence ensures that human beings are never truly lost, even when they feel abandoned, because the map of destiny has always been preserved. When Yoruba say Orunmila is the witness of creation, they mean that he alone saw the code of the universe as it was written. He knows why things happen, how balance can be restored, and what every soul was born to become. To seek Orunmila is to seek alignment with the divine blueprint itself. It is this sacred role, this guardianship of Ifá and human destiny, that makes the prophecy of his return so urgent and so powerful today. The prophecies of Orunmila are not scattered predictions or fortune tellers' guesses. They are encoded within the Ifá corpus, embedded in verses that have been recited, memorized, and applied across centuries. Ifá is a living library of spiritual intelligence, and within its 256 odos are stories that function both as mirrors of human behavior and as maps of divine order. These verses speak to timeless themes: justice, balance, destiny, the dangers of human arrogance, and the necessity of alignment with the Orisha. When read closely, they reveal more than personal advice. They reveal prophecies, patterns that echo through generations, guiding not only individuals but entire communities and nations. At the heart of Ifá's prophetic wisdom lies the theme of justice. Orunmila's verses often return to the idea that no wrong goes unmeasured, no imbalance uncorrected. Justice is not framed as punishment but as correction, the restoration of Ma'at-like balance, where disorder is realigned with cosmic truth. Ifá makes clear that injustice, whether at the personal or collective level, sets into motion forces that eventually demand rectification. A leader who exploits the people, a society that disregards its sacred obligations, or a family that abandons its ancestral traditions inevitably faces consequences. These are not curses, but the natural outcome of misalignment with destiny. Orunmila prophesies that justice, however delayed, will always arrive. The verses also speak frequently of order and balance, warning that the universe itself is built on equilibrium. When human beings disturb this balance, whether through greed, neglect of ritual, or environmental exploitation, disorder spreads. There are Ifá verses that describe villages descending into famine because the rituals of gratitude were abandoned, or families falling into discord because ancestral laws were forgotten. Yet in every story, Orunmila provides a path back: offerings to restore harmony, rituals to realign the spirit, confessions to cleanse the conscience. These stories function both as warnings and as prophecies. If balance is neglected, chaos will come, but if balance is restored, peace and abundance will follow. Destiny too is a recurring theme in Orunmila's prophecies. The verses remind us that every soul chose an Ori, a personal destiny, before descending to earth. The tragedy of human life, Ifá teaches, is not misfortune itself but the forgetting of one's true path. Orunmila warns that societies, like individuals, fall into ruin when they lose sight of their Ori. The colonization of African nations, for example, can be read through this lens. A forced separation from spiritual destiny, a forgetting of ancestral codes. Yet Orunmila also prophesies that destiny cannot be permanently erased. It can be delayed, distorted, but never destroyed. Sooner or later, the call of Ori resurfaces, urging both individuals and nations to return to the original path. One of the most striking elements in the Ifá verses are their warnings about forgetting tradition and neglecting the Orisha. Orunmila foresaw that people would drift away from their roots, chasing foreign gods, foreign systems, and foreign values, abandoning the sacred rituals that once kept them aligned with the divine order. These warnings are chillingly relevant today. Across generations, colonization, urbanization, and modernity have pulled people away from shrines, from libations, from ancestral consultation. And yet the verses insist that this forgetting cannot last forever. A people who forget their Orisha lose their balance, but the spirits remain patient, waiting for their children to remember. The prophecy is that such forgetting leads first to chaos, then to a painful longing for what was lost, and finally to revival. Indeed, Orunmila speaks of disruption and restoration as two halves of the same prophecy. He does not predict eternal doom, but temporary disorder, always followed by a chance to return. The famine ends when gratitude is restored. The conflict ends when truth is spoken. The exile ends when the ancestors are called home through ritual. Every prophecy of disruption carries within it the seed of restoration. This is why Ifá is not fatalistic. It does not present prophecy as destiny carved in stone, but as pathways, some destructive, others healing, depending on human choice and alignment. Perhaps the most powerful prophecy associated with Orunmila is that of cultural revival and the return of ancestral power. The verses speak of times when the children of Africa, scattered or oppressed, will return to their roots, reclaiming the wisdom that was nearly erased. This is not merely about a nostalgic return to rituals, but about a spiritual resurgence, a reawakening of the codes of power and identity that lie dormant within ancestral memory. In many ways, we are living in the age of that prophecy. Across the diaspora, Yoruba traditions are being revived. In Cuba, Brazil, the United States, and beyond, Ifá has been recognized as a global heritage, and young people across Africa are once again seeking the wisdom of the Orisha. What once seemed buried is sprouting again. The prophecy of Orunmila is not simply about his physical return, but about the return of wisdom itself. His verses foretell that humanity, after straying into arrogance and forgetfulness, will hunger for meaning again. When modern systems fail to provide balance, people will look back to the ancient ways. When injustice becomes unbearable, the call for cosmic justice will rise. When identity is stripped away, ancestral power will answer. Orunmila's prophecies, therefore, are not relics of the past. They are living instructions, unfolding before our very eyes. So when we ask if Orunmila's prophecies are coming true, the answer is not found in abstract speculation, but in observation. The crises we face echo his warnings. The revivals we see echo his promises. The hunger for wisdom in a world of confusion echoes his return. In truth, perhaps Orunmila never left. Perhaps his prophecy was not of a distant arrival, but of a moment, like now, when his voice would be remembered and his wisdom would once again guide the children of earth back into balance. The signs of Orunmila's prophecy unfolding are not distant, abstract, or hidden. They are alive in our time, tangible in the ways Yoruba spirituality is re-emerging across the globe, reclaiming a place it once held as a guiding force for communities. The prophecy that wisdom would return after seasons of forgetting is visible in the revival of Ifá, both in the diaspora and on the African continent. The whisper of Orunmila has become a drumbeat that is growing louder with each generation that dares to turn back to ancestral wisdom. One of the clearest signs lies in the Yoruba diaspora, particularly in Cuba, Brazil, and the United States. Centuries ago, enslaved Africans carried fragments of their traditions into foreign lands, often forced to disguise Orisha worship beneath Catholic saints and rituals. In Cuba, this blending birthed Santeria. In Brazil, it became Candomblé. In Trinidad, it merged into Shango Baptist traditions. These were not watered-down remnants, but living adaptations. Survival codes that kept the Orisha alive under impossible conditions. Today, these traditions are not only surviving, but thriving. Young Cubans, Brazilians, and African Americans are returning to Ifá and Orisha practice with pride, shedding colonial shame, and are reclaiming what their ancestors preserved in secret. Babalawos and priestesses are emerging in places once hostile to African spirituality, leading ceremonies, teaching verses, and initiating seekers who feel the call of Orunmila. This reawakening is not confined to local practice. On the global stage, Ifá has gained recognition as a spiritual and cultural treasure. In 2005, UNESCO declared Ifá divination a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity. This was more than a symbolic gesture. It was a formal acknowledgement that the verses of Orunmila, preserved in oral memory, are among humanity's most sophisticated knowledge systems. Ifá's 256 odus, with their thousands of verses, myths, and proverbs, are now studied not only by priests, but also by scholars of philosophy, anthropology, and history. The world is beginning to recognize that the wisdom embedded in Ifá is not primitive folklore, but advanced metaphysical science, containing insights about morality, ecology, psychology, and human destiny. Such recognition fulfills the prophecy that what was once despised would be honored again. Back in Nigeria, the homeland of Yoruba spirituality, there is a quiet but powerful return to traditional practices. For decades, colonial influence and imported religions suppressed Ifá and Orisha worship, branding them as backward or demonic. Shrines were destroyed, diviners persecuted, and many families abandoned ancestral rituals out of fear. Yet in recent years, there has been a resurgence. Festivals honoring the Orisha are drawing thousands once again. Pilgrimages to Ile-Ife, the spiritual heartland of the Yoruba, are increasing. Scholars, youth, and even political leaders are beginning to acknowledge the necessity of reclaiming traditional practices as part of cultural identity and national healing. What was once suppressed is being spoken of with pride. What was once hidden is being performed in the open. This revival is happening not in a vacuum, but in the shadow of crises that eerily echo Orunmila's warnings. Colonization, with its destruction of culture and enforced amnesia, was itself part of the disruption that the Ifá verses spoke of. Orunmila warned that neglecting the Orisha and forgetting ancestral traditions would bring imbalance, confusion, and suffering. For centuries, Africans and their descendants have lived under that shadow, stripped of language, disoriented by foreign systems, and left to navigate worlds divorced from their spiritual blueprints. The prophecy said that such forgetting would not last forever. And today, the longing for ancestral return is itself evidence of the fulfillment of that vision. Injustice, too, reverberates as a sign. Across the globe, systems of oppression, whether colonial exploitation, racial injustice, or economic inequality, have wreaked havoc. Ifá verses spoke of leaders who lose legitimacy when they abandon truth and compassion. They warned of societies collapsing when greed outweighs gratitude, and when the moral contract between people and ancestors is broken. Today's political instability, corruption, and inequality across nations echo those very prophecies. Yet even in the chaos, movements for justice, equity, and balance are rising. Communities are demanding accountability, echoing Orunmila's law that injustice must eventually give way to correction. Environmental imbalance provides yet another eerie mirror. Orunmila's verses frequently remind humanity that the earth is alive, that neglecting ritual obligations to rivers, forests, and skies disrupts cosmic order. Modern climate crisis, droughts, floods, deforestation, and ecological collapse bear witness to these warnings. Humanity has exploited the natural world without reverence, and the earth responds with upheaval. Yet even here, the prophecy of restoration can be seen. Indigenous and African spiritual practices that honor nature are being revisited as models for ecological healing. Sacred groves once abandoned are being reclaimed. Ritual offerings to rivers and forests are being revived, not only as spiritual acts, but as ecological ones. The ancient wisdom of balance with nature is resurfacing as a solution to modern catastrophe. Taken together, these signs suggest that Orunmila's prophecies are not distant promises but living realities. The diaspora's resilience, the global recognition of Ifá, the revival in Nigeria, and the crisis that echo ancient warnings all point to the same truth. The age of return has begun. Orunmila's presence is felt not only in divination sessions but in the growing global hunger for balance, justice, and ancestral wisdom. The prophecy of return was never just about a deity stepping back into the world. It was about humanity stepping back into itself, realigning with the codes of wisdom that Orunmila preserved. When we see a young African American initiate chanting Ifá verses, when we witness festivals in Brazil honoring Orisha with pride, When UNESCO validates Ifá as heritage, when Nigerians turn back to their shrines, we are witnessing prophecy. The voice of Orunmila is no longer a whisper. It is a rising chorus calling the scattered children of the world back into remembrance. The fulfillment of prophecy is rarely sudden. It unfolds like dawn, slowly, quietly, then brilliantly. The return of Orunmila may not be a dramatic descent from the heavens, but a gradual restoration of wisdom, culture, and power. And as these signs multiply across the earth, it becomes harder to deny. The return has already begun. If Orunmila is returning, then his wisdom is not for the past alone. It is for today, for the crises and questions that weigh on our world. The verses of Ifá, ancient as they are, continue to address the struggles of modern humanity with clarity and depth. They offer not only spiritual guidance, but also practical solutions for the challenges of leadership, morality, personal purpose, and even environmental survival. Far from being relics of an older time, Orunmila's teachings demonstrate their timelessness by speaking directly to the dilemmas of our age. One of the most striking features of Ifá is its ability to provide tailored solutions to specific problems. When someone consults Ifá through a babalawo, the divination process reveals an odu, a verse that mirrors the seeker's situation. This is not vague fortune telling, but a diagnostic system, uncovering the root of the issue, whether personal, social, or spiritual. Ifá offers prescriptions, sometimes a ritual, sometimes a moral correction, sometimes a practical action. A person struggling with illness might be instructed to perform an offering that symbolically restores balance, or to change a behavior that has disrupted their destiny. A leader facing political turmoil might receive guidance about justice, humility, or the danger of ignoring the counsel of elders. In this way, Orunmila's wisdom remains deeply applicable, offering a framework for problem solving that integrates the physical and spiritual dimensions of life. Ifá also carries profound environmental wisdom. The verses repeatedly affirm that nature is not a resource to be exploited, but a living force to be honored. Sacred rivers, forests, and mountains are not simply geographic features, but spiritual beings that demand respect. Orunmila teaches that when humanity neglects or abuses the natural world, the consequence is imbalance, droughts, floods, disease, and scarcity. Modern climate crises can be seen as manifestations of this ancient warning. The destruction of sacred groves, the pollution of rivers, and the reckless pursuit of profit over ecological balance echo exactly what Ifá cautioned against. Yet the verses also provide hope. They remind us that restoration is possible when humans return to reverence. Planting trees, honoring rivers with offerings, and protecting natural spaces are not only environmental actions, but spiritual obligations. In this way, Ifá's environmental teachings provide a model for sustainable living that modern societies urgently need to recover. Another crucial theme in Orunmila's wisdom is moral accountability and leadership ethics. Ifá does not separate politics from spirituality. A ruler, priest, or community leader is judged not by wealth or power, but by their alignment with truth and justice. Many Odu warn that leaders who exploit the people, hoard resources, or rule through deception will eventually fall. Leadership, according to Ifá, is sacred stewardship. It requires humility, listening to wise counsel, and maintaining balance between the people, the ancestors, and the divine. In today's world, plagued by corruption, abuse of power, and broken institutions, this teaching rings with urgency. Orunmila's wisdom reminds us that without accountability, no leadership can endure. Justice may be delayed, but it will always find its way back into the order of things. This prophetic insight is as relevant in government as it is in business, community, or family life. Yet Orunmila's wisdom is not only for societies, it is deeply personal. Central to his teaching is the principle of Ori, the inner head, the divine spark of destiny within each person. The Yoruba believe that before birth, every soul chooses an Ori, a destiny shaped in the presence of Olodumare. But upon entering the world, the soul forgets this choice. Life's journey becomes the process of remembering, realigning, and fulfilling that destiny. Orunmila, through Ifá, helps people rediscover their Ori. This principle is revolutionary in a world where many feel lost, without purpose, or pressured to conform to external definitions of success. Ori teaches that destiny is personal, sacred, and unique. No two paths are the same, and fulfillment comes not from imitation but from alignment with the destiny chosen before birth. Consider how relevant this is today. In an age of anxiety, disconnection, and identity crisis, Ori offers a profound antidote. It tells each person, you are not random, you are not meaningless. You carry a divine assignment, and your task in life is to walk in harmony with it. Through prayer, divination, and self-reflection, individuals can reconnect with their Ori, finding clarity about their choices, relationships, and purpose. This teaching offers empowerment without arrogance, reminding people that while they are divine, they are also accountable to the divine order that Orunmila preserves. Taken together, these aspects of Orunmila's wisdom form a holistic framework for living. Ifá addresses the crisis of our time, not with dogma, but with practical and spiritual solutions. Respect the earth, practice justice, honor your destiny, live in balance. It does not deny hardship, but offers pathways to overcome it. It does not promise easy answers, but insists on accountability. It does not separate the personal from the collective, reminding us that our individual alignment impacts the health of the entire community. So when we ask what Orunmila's wisdom offers today, the answer is clear. It offers a way back to order in a world drowning in chaos. It offers clarity in a time of confusion, accountability in an age of corruption, reverence in an era of exploitation, and purpose in a culture of aimlessness. These teachings are not ancient relics but living principles speaking to the very heart of modern crisis. To embrace them is to realize that the prophecy of Orunmila's return is not just about a deity's presence, but about the re-emergence of wisdom that humanity has never needed more than now. The voice of Orunmila is calling us to remember that destiny is not blind chance but sacred choice. And the time to walk in that remembrance is now. The prophecy of Orunmila's return raises a profound question. Is it to be understood literally as the physical reappearance of the Orisha, or symbolically as the resurgence of his wisdom through human practice? For centuries, this has been debated among Yoruba practitioners, scholars, and spiritual seekers. Each perspective reveals something important about how we experience the divine and how prophecy manifests in time. There are those who believe that Orunmila's return will be literal, that one day the Orisha will reappear on earth as he once walked with humanity. These adherents point to traditions that describe Orunmila's departure not as a disappearance into myth, but as a withdrawal with the promise of return. They see this as a sign that history is cyclical, and that just as Orunmila once lived among humans to guide them, he will again manifest physically in a time of deep confusion and imbalance. For these believers, the return will be a tangible event, a moment of renewal when the divine once again takes visible form to restore balance to a fractured world. Yet many others interpret the prophecy differently. They argue that Orunmila never truly left, and therefore his return cannot be about physical presence, but about spiritual awakening. To them, the prophecy is being fulfilled through the revival of Ifá across the globe. When Yoruba descendants in Cuba, Brazil, and the United States restored the ceremonies their ancestors kept alive in secret, Orunmila is returning. When Nigerians reclaim their shrines and proudly celebrate festivals once suppressed, Orunmila is returning. When the Ifá corpus is studied in universities and honored at World Heritage, his wisdom is returning to public consciousness. In this interpretation, the return is not about a single moment, but about a gradual re-entry of his voice into human practice. Perhaps both interpretations can coexist. The literalists remind us of the mystery of the divine, that the Orisha are not abstractions, but living forces capable of manifestation. The symbolic interpretation reminds us that prophecy is often about action, about what people remember, reclaim, and practice. Ultimately, the real return of Orunmila is in remembrance. It is in practice. It is when individuals realign with their Ori, when leaders return to justice, when communities honor the Orisha, when humanity listens again to the wisdom of the earth. Orunmila's return, then, is not simply an event we wait for. It is a responsibility we take on. Every offering poured, every verse recited, every act of truth and balance is part of his coming. In truth, Orunmila does not need to arrive. We are the ones who must return to him. The prophecies of Orunmila have always spoken of disruption and restoration, of forgetting and remembering, of imbalance followed by renewal. We have seen how these prophecies echo in the crises of our time, in the wounds left by colonialism, in the injustices that plague societies, and in the environmental imbalances that threaten the earth itself. Yet we have also seen the signs of fulfillment, the revival of Ifá across the diaspora, the global recognition of Yoruba wisdom, and the return to ancestral practices in Nigeria. These are not coincidences. They are the living proof that Orunmila's words remain alive, shaping history as they always have. The truth is this: Orunmila never left. We are the ones who drifted, who forgot, who turned away. His wisdom has been waiting, preserved in verses, proverbs, and rituals, patiently calling us back to balance. The real return is not only in prophecy, but in our remembrance, in our willingness to live in truth, honor the ancestors, respect the earth, and align with destiny. When we do these things, we walk again with Orunmila. So I leave you with a blessing. May your Ori guide you to clarity. May your steps be aligned with balance. May the wisdom of Orunmila awaken in your life as guidance, protection, and peace. If this message touched your spirit, I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe, not just to this channel, but to your own journey of remembrance. Share your thoughts below, share your story, and let us continue this revival together. Thank you for walking with me through this exploration. May Orunmila's light guide us all.
I never left. You are the ones who must return.